Welcome, everybody, back to Sew and Serve. I'm your host, Sophie Arrington, and today we have a wonderful FFA member from Oklahoma, Miss Olivia. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So my name's Olivia Luna. Like she said, I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm about to go into my senior year. It's about midsummer, so we're getting through all the camp, all the fun stuff like that. I'm mainly involved in the equine industry. That's usually where my heart lies. So maybe not your traditionally stock show animal side of things. I'm heavily involved in some of the leadership opportunities, especially public speaking. That's kind of where my heart lies.
Absolutely. I love that, and I can't wait to hear more. So we're going to have some few rapid fire questions.
Next,
Okay. Okay. So the first one is, what is your favorite FFA contest?
Well, like I just said, probably public speaking.
Yeah.
I had 2 speeches this year, and then I do extemporaneous. So I'm kind of involved in that. I love getting to talk on topics that I'm passionate about, getting to be able to share my ideas, my thoughts about things. It's a really amazing opportunity within a contest. I do love prepared public speaking for sure.
Absolutely. I've never done that contest, but I know so many people that's done it, and it seems like such a cool
Absolutely.
contest to watch. What is your go-to gas station snack?
That's a tough
Yeah.
one. Honestly, I'm a big Sour Patch girl. I love Sour Patches, and in Oklahoma, can't get anything better than Dr. Pepper. So if I was gonna go to a gas station, Dr. Pepper and some Sour Patch Kids.
Yes, that's my go-to too. I love me a Dr. Pepper. Yes. And what is one word to describe going into your senior year?
Going into my senior year, I think the biggest thing that I want to touch on for me personally is authenticity.
Mhm.
Just being able to be with members, be genuine. We all have these ideas about how we can impact others, how we can inspire others. And I truly believe that authenticity creates opportunities for connection. So I think that if I could focus on one word, it'd probably be that. That way I could just stay true to having genuine connections and conversations with the people around me.
Absolutely. I think that should be a big one for everyone. I love
Absolutely.
that. And last but not least, what is a funny FFA memory that you have?
Honestly, I think some of the best memories that we have are created in the ag truck on the way to contests. Or maybe it's not one specifically, but this idea of the memories that we create just sitting in there with our advisors. I think those hold true to be some of the funniest ones that we have.
Yes, absolutely. Especially if your advisor can't drive.
Yes, absolutely. Teachers hate curbs. That's what they say.
Yes. Yes, that's what they're known for.
Yes.
So tell me about how you started in FFA. What originally pulled you in?
It's actually kind of a funny story. So we'll take it back. My When my dad was in college, he used to, like, drive buses just for some extra money on the side. He actually had the opportunity to take a group of students to National FFA Convention. So with that came along with a ID pass. He got to sit on the floor and experience the amazing national convention that we all know and love. And so I remember being about in 6th grade, and he was like, "All right, we need to find a school that has FFA. You've just gotta get into this organization." So uprooted because we lived in like Branson, Missouri at the time, a very like urban area, and then moved to Sapulpa, Oklahoma. So it's a very rural town, small people, communities. And I didn't really know what to expect. And so I joined the FFA program at Kiefer, which is a neighboring town to Sapulpa. Really small group of people, a really small community. And honestly, didn't know what to expect in FFA. We call it the Future Farmers of America. And I was like, I've had a horse for just over a year. Like, I don't know how I fit into this. And when I got into it, I very quickly learned through opening ceremonies and some of the other opportunities that this was a leadership organization that was structured around the importance of agriculture. And I really think that the family of FFA tied into my love for it and my passion for it, and it very quickly became a second home to me. So absolutely, it's kind of a unique story to get into FFA, but a cool one that I can tell later on.
Yes, I love your story, how you started. That's awesome.
Very cool.
Yes. So you grew up in a completely urban area and then moved to a rural life. What was the biggest shock and like the biggest blessing in that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. When we moved to Oklahoma, we actually had the opportunity to buy a piece of land right across from my grandmother. And so we are right there next to family. My aunt lives, next door, and we're surrounded by cousins and families and all of the things, that you would think of in a rural community. It's really like a sweet little hometown. So I think that was kind of the biggest shock because I lived, 5 minutes from the nearest town. It was really easy to get into a popularized society, and moving here, it's about 20 minutes to get to the nearest, Walmart or gas station or anything like that. So I think that was kind of a shock, but I honestly think it was a blessing in disguise to be able to be around those people. Now I live in a school community where everybody knows your name. They know what you're doing in life. They want to support you. I've gotten so many text messages from people who are just inside the community that were like, "Hey, I heard you're doing this. I'm so excited to support you through this process." So some of those things were a really, really huge blessing as a little sixth grader moving, 4 hours down into Oklahoma.
Yes, absolutely. It's about the amazing uplifting people that surround you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It truly does take a village, and I'm really grateful that, when you move into those rural communities, that there is a larger village waiting to greet you. So,
Yeah.
completely, it was an amazing opportunity.
So tell us about your equine and your horses.
Yes, absolutely. It's a little different. So I bought my first horse, like I said, when I was around 10 years old, so really young. And we had a place that we were keeping them up there in Branson. And so I'd go and I would take care of them, but they weren't living on my property. And so when we moved to Oklahoma, those with me, we had a piece of land that we could take care of them on. And so it became like this routine. Like I was waking up early in the morning, going to bed late at night so I could feed the horses. And really an amazing opportunity. There's nothing wrong with that. It was fantastic to have them at my own place. But that just grew. My love for horses grew. And what started with just one it has now turned into 13 head. I have 2 performance horses that I mainly ride that they will probably stay on my property until I retire them, and they'll just stay there. But then we also have a couple of reset mares, so those are like surrogate mares. So the performance mares, we get AI those, and then we breed every year, to different stallions, and then put them in the surrogates, and then they'll deliver. So we actually have 4, babies on the property right now that are, in different age brackets. So we have a couple of weanlings, a couple of yearlings, and then we have 1 3-year-old that we're about to send off to training. So it's really a diverse, project that we have going on.
I love it. And what's your initial goal for this operation?
I think that more or less of a goal, it's more about the passion and the love that I have for this industry. And I love having the ability to train my own. Both of my performance mares, one of them was started by another lady that I worked very closely with, but the other one was completely started and is now winning, based on my training. And so that's such a fulfilling process for me. I find so much gratitude in that. But being able to share that with people to build this brand, this name, that I started, it is a really fulfilling process. And to be able to be like, hey, this horse, I get to like track it halfway across the country and see what she's doing now. And it started at my property. And so being able to have those opportunities to work with those kind of people, it is a really fulfilling experience. I am filled with a lot of gratitude through the equine industry, and I love working with the people, and the opportunities that it has to offer. So it's definitely more about the passion than necessarily some goals, but there are some goals tied into there for sure.
That's awesome. I love hearing about that. What's the hardest part of training horses and like what's the most rewarding part?
Say the hardest part is that they have their own personalities. They have their own minds. It's not something that you can control. It's something that you work with. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. They are amazing, amazing animals, but they're also your teammate. And they are very vocal in their own ways about what they need from you. And so I think, working with them, it can be challenging because all of them are different. I have a mare that has we bought her off the track, so completely different, kind of series of events that she went through to get to where she was today. But, I was working with her and she has a big personality. She has a lot of attitude that comes with her, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was different to learn to work with her. She has, like I said, a very big personality, but she is not afraid to, be who she is. And she will kick and she will buck and she's reared on me. She's flipped over with me a few times. She just has a very big personality. But I think that the rewarding part is it's like a double-edged sword. Seeing them being able to harness their abilities and their personalities and to take those into something that they really enjoy. No, it is a job for them, but it is better for them when they love their job. It's just like us. And so being able to find her and see her just crave the barrel pit, she just loves it. And so everything that I put up with in the training process, I'm now reaping the rewards of that because she gets to do what she likes. So I definitely think that it is a mix of emotions, and training horses can be a very invigorating process, but the reward is, again, so sweet. It's so fun to have that opportunity to see them really grow and then to take them from a place where they couldn't even lope a circle to now that they're winning, barrel races and having that opportunity. They know that. They can feel that. It's definitely cool to see that.
Yes, it is so cool. I'm not around horses. I've been around cattle my whole life, and I show cows, and it's the exact same way. They all have their own personalities.
People forget that they have larger than life personalities most
Yeah,
of the time. And that's what makes them such a fulfilling process is that
it
you
is.
get to work with something that's so fun, that has its own personality, and there's just
Mhm.
opportunities to explore with them.
Yes, absolutely. And you're passionate about agriculture education, especially elementary schools. What drew you into ag ed?
So I actually have an ag ed SAE. So I get to do a lot of lesson planning. I get to teach the eighth graders at my homeschool. We're hoping to, travel a little bit with that this year. So that'll be a fun experience. But I've had, the opportunity to kind of pick and choose what I want to teach. And so that's been a really fun part of it. So with those eighth graders, like a couple weeks ago before school got out, we taught a sales and communication workshop. And so we bought, like, I don't know, it was like 4 brands of soaps and they had to sell me the soap. It sounds a little ridiculous, but it was a lot of fun. Um, Getting to see the way that they communicate, the way that they think. But I am very passionate about ag ed, especially like you said, in elementary school. A goal of mine was to implement some of those ag ed curriculum into elementary schools. I think it's extremely important to have some agricultural literacy. And I think that it's really easy to forget that agricultural affects all of us. And especially in Oklahoma, where we have so many rural communities, anything from cow-calf operations to wheat and soybean farmers. We have everything in Oklahoma. And it's really blessed that we have, those communities and opportunities. But without them understanding how important it is to our society, they don't understand. And we can't fault them for that. But understanding how important agriculture is to them. And even some simple things like I talked to a group of second graders in one of my act in the classroom workshops that I did earlier this year. And a few of them thought that the food came from the grocery store. And silly things like that they don't understand. And so I really am trying to be an advocate for getting ag ed into those programs, into those curriculum, because it's really just as important as, some of the biology that some of the math and reading and all of those things need to be your base curriculums. But understanding the agricultural industry, understanding its importance to their society, even in New York, we think about New York as just New York City, but
Yeah.
Northern New York, and it's these rural communities. You had no idea. And like I said, Oklahoma, we are so diverse in our agricultural programs. So to be able to get ag education into those elementary schools to understand even in the big cities like Tulsa and Oklahoma City, things like that about agriculture and how it affects them. Because agriculture is really everything from oil and gas, which is what our state is known for, to crop productions and cow farms and the equine industry and all of the things that you think of when you think of agriculture. And so I definitely am an advocate for that. I think it is extremely important. And I think that it's important for our elementary students and for those people to understand how important ag ed is, to have an understanding of ag literacy and what it means for them.
Absolutely, that is so true. And how has your perspective on agriculture evolved since joining FFA?
Absolutely. I would say this is the big one. Because I didn't grow up in a traditional 5 generation cow-calf operation. And I'm
Mhm.
envious of the people who did, the things that they learned, the lessons that they had the opportunity to learn so early, to be able to be exposed to the industry so early in life. Like, what an amazing opportunity. But I think, honestly, my view on agriculture is so profound because I didn't grow up with those things. I grew up in Fort Worth actually, and then, moved to Missouri in a very urban, suburban area. neighborhood. We had houses right next to each other. It was very different from the life that I'm living today. And so now that I am in these rural communities, I have such an appreciation for, agriculture and how it affects me. And so moving right before the episode deadline, it was like I got hit with this agricultural training all at once. And I'm so glad that I did. I moved to this community. I got to see these people. And then I went right into my FFA program at my school, where they emphasize the importance of agriculture and how it affects us. And they emphasize agricultural leadership. There's so
Mhm.
many positions that affect agriculture. We have legislators that are working for agriculture on our behalf, those laws, bills that they're trying to pass to support farmers and ranchers. We have school teachers that are promoting ag ed. We have industry professionals that are always promoting ag ed. So to be able to see how important it was to this program, see an organization that was founded on this principle of agriculture and how important it was to us, but also let it be a community of people that were so passionate about agriculture. It like took me on this speed train from suburban life to understanding why ag was important, and then straight through to being an advocate for it because I got to know what agricultural was, and then I got to experience it, and then I found a platform to share why I thought it was important. So FFA is really an amazing opportunity for people who are excited about ag ed and the opportunities that it has to offer. But my view on agriculture has definitely changed since I got into that.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, I love your inspiring story of opportunity. Yes. And what
Yes.
is that setback that you had, and how did you overcome it?
I think it's really easy to say like one thing was just a setback or one thing was an obstacle. But it's really the little things I think that can set us back the most. I would say probably one of the bigger setbacks is, running for chapter office. It was a huge thing for a lot of us that are passionate in FFA, and it's really easy to work really hard for a position and be very like be next to some very qualified candidates. And I think that the important thing to realize is that it was never about a title, it was about the opportunity to impact. And so I think that it's easy to get caught up in, this is where I should stand, this is where I fit in. But I think where you fit in, where you are the missing piece in your community, often is a door that opens up after you go through something that was hard. I am a firm believer
Yes.
that we grow the most in uncomfortable situations. That the best leaders are made through the conversations that are hard, the conversations that feel like they are too adulty for you right now, the conversations where you have to stand up for yourself, the conversations where you have to be an advocate for what you believe in. Those are the hard times. Those are what make leaders. And I think, being able to see that, to understand that. And honestly, that's something that I learned through FFA. FFA was an opportunity for me to experience how important it was to be a servant leader. It was an opportunity for me to see how important it was to impact the people around me and to be genuine and to be kind. We talk about this all the time, like what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And I still have it. It's in my wallet. It's written on a piece of paper and it says, I want to leave a legacy of kindness and gratitude. And so every day I strive to be that person. Because it doesn't matter what I'm going through, it matters what they're going through and how I can help, how I can be that person, how I can advocate for them, how I can impact them, how I can serve them. And so I think it's this everyday choice that you make to wake up and be like, I'm going to serve others today. I'm going to impact others today. And I think that that's such a fulfilling process in itself. And you overcome the title very, very quickly because serving others is so much more fulfilling than just having a title or a position and calling that good. 'Cause great leaders are the ones who serve others. So absolutely.
Yes, and I love every bit what you just said. Leadership is all about your actions. Yes.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yes. And talk about Oklahoma FFA. What makes Oklahoma different or unique compared to other states?
Wow, hard
Yeah.
question. I think Oklahoma is one of the earlier founded chapters. We were founded before National FFA was even chartered. Now, I can't say that for Kiefer. We were chartered about 7 years ago, so it's not quite the same as Oklahoma. in itself. But I think that Oklahoma is so rich in agriculture. It's so full of, the things that we are proud of. We are very livestock driven, but we also have so many people who are, passionate about public speaking and passionate about some of the other national contests that we have available. And I think that since we've been around so long, we have more opportunities than, say, some other states that were chartered later, just because we've had more time to develop and evolve as, a state association. I think that Oklahoma holds itself to a very high standard for professionalism in their FFA programs. We have a lot of FFA programs in the state. We're very FFA forward. You can just ask just about anybody in a K through 12 program right now, and they probably know at least about FFA, and about 80% of them are gonna be in FFA. So I think that since we had so much time to evolve, maybe more opportunities in some states, but we have a lot, of growth that has happened in some of these past years to allow us to have more capacity for FFA in our state.
Yes, I love that, and I love how you said from K to 12, like, people know about FFA, and
Absolutely, yes.
that is wonderful. That's awesome. And I've seen, like, you've went to WLC this past week. How did you like it?
You know,
What's the experience?
it was an amazing experience. I really loved it. I think a lot of the, you know, conventions and leadership conferences that you go to really focus on how to be a leader. Right, how to impact others. And WLC was like what to do when you are a leader. It was how can you serve your community? How can you serve others? So I really loved that aspect of it. And it was a really amazing opportunity to see people from across the state. You're joining with so many other people who are like-minded, who
Yeah.
think the same way about agricultural issues as you do to see, like, the future leader. It was really inspiring. It was a really an amazing experience.
Yes, I love that. And wrap it up with our last question. What is one message you want every FFA member listening to hear today?
I would say FFA is an organization that allows ourselves to view us as the best versions of ourselves. FFA allows us to have limitless possibilities. And I think that, as a younger FFA member, I didn't quite understand the value that FFA held because truly FFA is a community that believes in leadership. They believe in supporting the future, agriculturalists and engineers and doctors and leaders. They believe in supporting everybody. And it just happens to be centered around one of our industry's greatest topics, which is agriculture. And so I think it is such an amazing opportunity to show up for people to be able to learn how to serve people, really learn how to be grateful in this organization. This organization teaches you so much.
Mhm.
And I really think it shows you how to be the 1% in your community, to be the 1% that is striving for more, that is striving to be the best versions of themselves, that is striving to be a servant leader. I say this all the time. You need to find what your passion is and what your purpose is. And where those two overlap, that's where you belong. And so I think the FFA really holds the opportunities for that. I found my passion as a little eighth grader to talk in front of people. And then I found my purpose, which was to share, about agriculture and about ag ed and to advocate for those things. I found that middle ground in speeches. I found that middle ground in traveling to see other member chapters. I found that middle ground and simply showing up for my chapter. It is a really an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing organization. And I would tell literally anybody to join it. We have the saying in Oklahoma, I don't know if it's the same in other states, but we say yo go whippy. You only get out what you put in. And so I would stay true to that. And when you find something that coincides with your passion and your purpose, to give it 100%. And I can promise you, especially in this organization, that it will give back to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. It's such
Absolutely.
an honor to be able to hear it and your great messages. Thank you.
Thank you so much.